it was chosen for today with a beautiful spiritual gathering. I really felt lifted. Thank you so much for having me here. And the Spirit is one. Yes. In each synagogue, in each church, in each mosque, the Spirit is one.
Yes.
Well, the universe is one. And that's what we all about. So oneness, that's what I learned back home in Iraq within the Islamic teachings. Unity. So in unity, there is no enemy, no place for an enemy. But when we split, then part of the split is us too. So there will be the concept of enemy, and that's us too. So we need to maintain this unity. Islamophobia, that's what's going on in the Western world today. Islam, the word that I know, but phobia I don't know. It's an English word, it's not an Arabic, and we don't use it. But I learned that phobia is fear. So Islamophobia, it's the enemy today. And the more we keep unity in place, there will be no such phobia. Islam, it's a religion that when I was born for Muslim parents, so I was born a Muslim. Just like anybody else, anywhere else, we all inherited our faith. But my oldest son, whom I consider the luckiest, he was born here. So he got the opportunity that I didn't get. So he was born to Muslim parents, but he chose to be a Christian. Wow. So that's what we call freedom and democracy. Islam means submission. Muslim means submitter. But for whom? Allah. Allah has 99 qualities, 99 names. The most powerful one is Salam, peace. So Muslims pray 5 times a day, kneeling down 17 times a day within that 5 times prayers. And each time they kneel down, there is a clay stone. They kneel at, like Mother Earth, in case the floor is wooden floor, beautiful floor like this, or if they are living in the 2nd or 3rd floor of a building, so they are not in touch with Mother Earth. They kneel down 17 times on something like this. I carry this every time because this is what I am. Stardust, clay, mud. That's what we are. So 5 times a day, 17 times kneeling down on this, we have to be reminding ourselves that you are nothing more, nothing but stardust, traveling, meeting, getting married, producing stardust, and the journey goes on. There are 1.6 billion of Muslims around the globe today. So according to the Islamophobia, those 1.6 billions are terrorist Muslims. It's really painful. I left Iraq in 1976 when Saddam Hussein addressed the Iraqis, telling them, if you're not with me, you're against me. I ended up leaving Iraq and eventually settled here in 1984. There was no place for me to stay there. Right after 9/11 and at ground zero, George Bush Jr. addressed the whole world, if you're not with me, you're against me. And I go, uh-oh. Looks like I never left Iraq. So George Bush echoed Saddam's. It's about power. Islamophobia is the enemy. ISIS is the enemy. No difference. But when I write ISIS, I write it I, and at the top of that IS becomes a dollar sign. So two of them are money. It's about money. And it's about selling arms. So you will be not surprised when the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute in Sweden recently issued a report about who's benefiting from the global arms sales. And guess what? I think you know. Martin Lockheed. The total of the top 100 arms sales companies in the world made a profit of $402 billion in 2013. Out of the top 100 arms sales companies, 59% of those companies are from the US. Lockheed Martin alone made $36 billion in 2013. And following Lockheed, Boeing, and the list goes down. So the 10 of those most 100 arms sales companies, 10 of them globally, they are the richest and they were the most profiting companies. 7 of them are US companies. Arms sales. Right after the Libyan extremist group, ISIS style, executed 25 Coptic Egyptians, Christians. That was about February 26, February 27. The Egyptian authority sent its fighter jets, bombed those. I don't know how many they killed, just like the drones. Always they kill innocent people. But right after that incident, an endless amount of weapons were parachuted, dropped from air by cargo planes on the borders of Libya and Egypt to instigate and inflame that incident in a way of an Arab country fighting their brothers and sisters in the other Arab countries, neighboring countries. And you can find this if you go to YouTube and look for a huge amount of weapons on the border of Libya and Egypt. Two months ago, little more than 2 months ago, the head of Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency, met with the King Salman of Saudi Arabia, showed him pictures of missiles that set in Al Hudaydah port in Yemen, telling them, look at those missiles, they are Iranian-made missiles aimed on Tel Aviv. But Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, is closer. Are you going to do anything about it? Salman said, you bet. Right away, Salman signed an arms deal with the US, an amount of $40 billion. And he started his bombing campaign, recruiting some Arab and Muslim countries. So Arabs are killing each other. It's Islamophobia, an enemy, so it needs a war. We have to fight this enemy by launching wars. It's not only about that. But about another strategy that's set in 1986 by a Zionist scholar called Uday Yenon, Y-I-N-O-N. Uday Yenon presented his thesis to the Israeli government in 1986, telling them, if you want to deal with your enemies and be successful in securing long-term security for your country, and by the way, our friend the US will help us. And this strategy based on understanding that the Arab countries are not united, the Arab nations are not one nation, but they are different tribes, sects, religions, and ethnicity. So in order to keep them busy, just have them engaged in inner fight based on differences, and that's called divide and conquer. What we witness today in Libya, people are killing each other. In Syria, the same. In Yemen, not only Houthis against other tribes and other Yemenis, but Saudi Arabia as a country against the Yemen, the whole country. In Iraq, well, ISIS, the dollar sign, since I arrived here, while I'm in Iraq, radio stations, journalists keep calling me and asking me, who are those ISIS, Sami? Sure. Well, I was in Erbil June 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th of 2014, last year. I had to go to Erbil to escort my friend Tom Fazy from New York. He is 72 years old, retired professor at Mount Sinai University in New York. He comes and visits Iraq, Najaf, where I was born, my city, periodically. He has visited so far about 4 times. And he had some project to do with the University of Kufa and Najaf. So Tom Faisal couldn't come to Najaf. We have an airport in Najaf. He couldn't get a seat. The plane was full. So I told him, I suggested to go to Erbil, and I fly to Erbil and bring him. So while we were in the hotel, and I noticed a working young man there, supposed to be Kurdish. Erbil is part of Kurdistan, Iraq Kurdistan. When I heard them speaking Arabic, they got my attention, and I asked them whether they are from the south. They said, no, we are from Mosul. NATO. Wow, what's the news in Mosul? How is the situation? We cannot go there. We have families. What we do, we work here, we wire the money to our family, but we cannot because the city is taken over by militia, by armed people. And the central government forces are not wanted, are not welcome there. Mostly Christian and other ethnicities, but also Arab Sunnis. But this young man and other young man we met never mentioned the word ISIS or Daesh in Arabic. So we left, Tom and I, we left Erbil in June 7th, 9th, 8th, 9th, 10th, we are in Najaf. We flew back to Najaf with him. We heard in the news, Mosul was taken by ISIS. So when I'm asked about ISIS, I go, I don't know ISIS, but you better ask John McCain. John McCain, in several interviews, he mentioned he was intimately meeting them, talking to them, and still communicating with them. And there are pictures, shows McCain meeting with the head of ISIS, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. So that got my curiosity. So I went and searched in the internet, who is Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi and what's ISIS? I found out ISIS actually, there was ISIS, but it stands for Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. That was shocking for me. And also, I found out who heading this organization. His real name is Simon Elliott, a Jew person who was born to a Jewish family, and he was trained and etc. And now we all should be careful to take these news from the internet. But for me, I believe that because I followed the thesis of Uday Yenin that encouraged the Israelis and the US to divide the Arab world by injecting them with those militia, extremist so-called militia, train them in Turkey, finance them by Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and send them to Libya, Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. In 2002, Saddam Hussein was able to drive so-called Bernard Henry Levy, another Zionist who keeps meeting and training and leading those groups in Afghanistan, in Yemen, in Libya, in Egypt, Syria, and Iraq. But when Saddam Hussein's intelligence found out about him, that he's in the northern Iraq trying to establish a cell called Tawheed wal Jihad, another group of those so-called extremists. So they drove him away, and he found no place in Iraq to start this dirty work. And therefore, the commission of 9/11 report, when was issued, there were in the findings that Iraq didn't have any connection with Al-Qaeda. Iraq didn't have connection with 9/11. Iraq had no weapon of mass destruction. You remember that?
Yes.
But still, Iraq was invaded. Iraq literally destroyed. More than 2 million people got killed. According to Lancet study, the guesstimate strategy that they adopted, because there is no record in Iraq to see how many exactly lost their life, because many families died without recording, because you need to go to a hospital to take your dead people to be registered or kept until they get buried. Nothing that happened. And that war and occupation of 8 years and still going on. What we have today from all this kind of violence, killing, and no sense of wars, continuance of wars, was a result of what happened in 2003. Now, ISIS was not homegrown as Bernard Henry Levy wanted to establish in northern Iraq, because he failed to do that. So it came from Syria, was already violated the borders, and got in Mosul in west Iraq and stayed there. ISIS today, they control more than a dozen of oil fields. And those oil fields are producing oil fields. They have the capacity, I don't know how, the capacity to produce. They have the engineers. They have radio stations, not TV station yet, but radio stations run by an American accent, addressing the Western world to recruit those young Muslim fighters by misleading them, telling them that ISIS is there to help the Sunnis in Iraq, because those Sunnis got marginalized, neglected, and persecuted by al-Maliki, which is true. Al-Maliki, for 2 terms, applied very harsh sectarian ruling against our brothers and sisters, the Sunnis. I may tell you what Sunni is. Sunnah means a path. And Muslims all, even the Shia, are Sunnah, because they follow the Sunnah of